1960 to 1961. The Lakers move west and a league begins to modernize. The NBA entered the 1960 to 61 season in the middle of a transformation. The league was still small, just 8 teams. But the geography shifted permanently with the relocation of the Minneapolis Lakers to Los Angeles, marking the first West Coast franchise in NBA history. This single move not only gave the NBA a foothold in the entertainment capital of the world, but also hinted at the future. A truly national league that would stretch from coast to coast. The Lakers move west. The move wasn't just about geography. It was about identity. Owner Bob Short, unable to sustain the Lakers financially in Minneapolis, took a gamble on Los Angeles. The Lakers set up in the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, playing before larger and more diverse crowds than Minnesota ever offered. While attendance was not immediately overwhelming, the symbolism mattered. The NBA was now aligned with Hollywood, television, and a broader market. The team itself was also undergoing a youth-driven renaissance. Elgin Baylor, in just his 3rd season, had already become one of the league's premier stars. Baylor finished the year averaging 34.8 points and 19.8 rebounds per game, numbers that put him in rarefied air even as a forward. He was both a dominant rebounder and a graceful scorer, and Los Angeles quickly embraced his hangtime artistry. But perhaps even more important, the Lakers introduced a rookie guard who would redefine the franchise. Jerry West. Drafted out of West Virginia, West averaged 17.6 points and 7.7 rebounds per game in his debut year, showing flashes of the steady shooting and relentless work ethic that would one day earn him the nickname Mr. Clutch. Though Baylor was the established star, West's arrival gave the Lakers a foundation for the decade. Wilt Chamberlain's ascendancy. Elsewhere, the league was still trying to process the force of nature that was Wilt Chamberlain. Now in his 2nd year, Chamberlain shattered records again, averaging 38.4 points and 27.2 rebounds per game for the Philadelphia Warriors. He scored at will in almost every game, including a stunning 78-point performance against the Lakers in December 1961, which at the time was the 2nd highest total in NBA history. Yet despite Chamberlain's individual dominance, the Warriors struggled to build a title contender around him. Opponents increasingly slowed games down just to keep his numbers from ballooning out of control, foreshadowing the league-wide pace and rules debates of the decade. Celtics still rule. Meanwhile, the Boston Celtics, under coach Red Auerbach, continued to define the standard for winning basketball. Powered by Bill Russell's defense and rebounding, the Celtics finished with a 57-22 record, best in the league. Russell averaged 23.9 rebounds per game, anchoring the defense while leaving plenty of offensive room for Tom Heinsohn, 21.3 ppg, and Sam Jones, 15.8 ppg. Boston's style, rooted in fast breaks, unselfish passing, and suffocating defense, represented the opposite of Chamberlain's statistical dominance. Where Wilt was overwhelming in isolation, the Celtics proved the power of balance and teamwork. Playoffs and finals. The 1961 playoffs reflected these dynamics. In the West, Baylor carried the Lakers past the Pistons in the division finals, scoring over 40 points multiple times. Los Angeles immediately looked like a contender in its first year in California. But in the finals, the Celtics' depth and execution were too much. Boston defeated the Lakers 4-1, with Russell neutralizing Baylor's rebounding while the Jones brothers, Sam and KC, provided clutch scoring. The message was clear. The Celtics dynasty was intact, but with Baylor and West in Los Angeles and Wilt looming in Philadelphia, the decade promised new and bitter rivalries. 1961 to 1962. Wilt's 100 and a scoring revolution. The 1961-62 NBA season is remembered as one of the most remarkable in league history. It was a year defined by scoring explosions, statistical feats that still defy belief, and the deepening rivalries that would shape the decade. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game and historic season. No story looms larger than Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. On March 2, 1962, in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Chamberlain scored exactly 100 points against the New York Knicks, shattering every notion of what one player could do in a basketball game. He made 36 of 63 shots from the field and an astonishing 28 of 32 free throws, despite being a poor foul shooter. Fans rushed the floor, and the hastily scribbled 100 sign that Wilt held afterward became one of the most iconic images in basketball history. That night was the peak of a season that was statistically incomprehensible. Chamberlain averaged 50.4 points and 25.7 rebounds per game over the course of the season, playing 48.5 minutes per game. He rarely came out, even in overtime. He scored 60 or more points 15 times. Chamberlain's feats pushed the league into new territory, forcing coaches and executives to reconsider how to defend him and how to keep the sport competitive. The scoring explosion. Chamberlain's dominance coincided with a broader scoring revolution. The league played at a breakneck pace. Teams averaged 118.8 points per game, the highest in NBA history. Stars like Elgin Baylor and Oscar Robertson thrived in this open style. Baylor had his best season yet, averaging 38.3 points and 18.6 rebounds per game for the Lakers. What made it even more remarkable was that Baylor was also serving as a U.S. Army reservist. He often flew in from duty to play games, sometimes arriving just before tip-off. Despite this grueling schedule, his artistry, hang-time moves, twisting layups, and deep scoring cemented him as the face of the Lakers in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Oscar Robertson, in just his second year, averaged a triple-double across the entire season: 30.8 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 11.4 assists per game. This feat, unmatched until Russell Westbrook did it in 2016-17, demonstrated Robertson's all-around brilliance and gave the Cincinnati Royals a superstar who could dominate every facet of the game. The Celtics machine. While Chamberlain, Baylor, and Robertson rewrote the record books, the Boston Celtics once again wrote the championship story. Russell averaged 18.9 points and 23.6 rebounds, anchoring Boston's defense and fueling their devastating fast break. Guards Sam Jones and K.C. Jones, along with Heinsohn and Frank Ramsey, provided scoring balance. Boston finished 60-20, best in the league, and marched through the playoffs to yet another finals appearance. Playoffs and the epic finals. The 1962 finals delivered one of the greatest series ever played. The Los Angeles Lakers, powered by Baylor and Jerry West, finally looked like they could topple Boston. Baylor was transcendent, scoring 61 points in Game 5, a finals record that still stands. He averaged 40.6 points and 17.9 rebounds in the series. The finals went to a dramatic Game 7 in Boston Garden. In overtime, with the game tied, Sam Jones hit clutch baskets while Frank Ramsey sealed it. The Celtics survived, 110-107, winning their fourth straight championship. For Los Angeles, the heartbreak of being so close yet denied by Boston would become a theme of the decade. For the league, the 1961-62 season showcased both statistical brilliance and championship drama, setting the stage for a golden era. 1962-1963, the rise of Jerry West. The following season was shaped by transitions. Though Chamberlain still posted towering numbers, attention increasingly shifted toward the growth of Jerry West and the Lakers' attempt to finally break through against Boston. Wilt's new normal. Wilt Chamberlain, almost casually, averaged 44.8 points and 24.3 rebounds per game, numbers that would be legendary for any player but looked ordinary only because they followed his 50-point season. The Warriors, however, were not true contenders, leaving Chamberlain in the paradox of being statistically unmatched but unable to turn that dominance into titles. Jerry West emerges. For the Lakers, Jerry West evolved from Baylor's sidekick into a superstar in his own right. West averaged 27.1 points per game and displayed the clutch shot-making that would define his career. His outside shooting and calm under pressure gave the Lakers a balance they had lacked. Baylor remained spectacular, posting 34.0 points and 14.3 rebounds, but injuries began to nag him. Together, Baylor and West became one of the most feared duos in the league, carrying Los Angeles to another finals berth. Boston reloads with Havlicek. The Celtics, meanwhile, continued to evolve. In the 1962 draft, They added John Havlicek, a tireless swingman from Ohio State who brought energy, defense, and scoring depth. Havlicek quickly became a sixth-man extraordinaire, averaging 14.3 points per game off the bench. His motor and versatility foreshadowed the Celtics' ability to refresh their dynasty as older stars aged. Russell once again controlled the interior, averaging 23.6 rebounds, while Sam Jones blossomed into Boston's go-to scorer, with 19.7 points per game. The Celtics finished 58-22, again the league's best record. Playoffs and another finals clash. The stage was set for yet another Lakers-Celtics finals. West and Baylor pushed Boston hard, but the Celtics' depth and Russell's defensive mastery proved decisive. Boston captured the championship 4-2, giving them 5 titles in 7 years. Once again, the Lakers walked away frustrated, but West's emergence gave Los Angeles 1963-1964. Russell versus Chamberlain intensifies. By 1963-64, the league was settling into a familiar rhythm. Wilt's individual brilliance, Boston's collective dominance, and the Lakers trying to close the gap. Wilt's Warriors reload. The Warriors had moved from Philadelphia to San Francisco in 1962, giving the league its second West Coast team. Chamberlain was still dominant, averaging 36.9 points and 22.3 rebounds per game, but roster support lagged behind. Playing in the Cow Palace, Chamberlain gave the Bay Area a spectacle, but team success eluded him. The Celtics machine. Boston, by contrast, was a model of stability. Russell averaged 24.7 rebounds per game, anchoring the defense, while Sam Jones scored 24.0 points per game, the highest of his career. Havlicek grew into a more central role, and Tom Heinsohn provided veteran leadership. The Celtics finished 59-21, first in the East, and stormed through the playoffs with defensive precision. Lakers challenges. For the Lakers, injuries to Elgin Baylor limited their ceiling. Baylor's knee troubles began to alter his explosiveness, forcing West to shoulder more of the scoring load. West responded brilliantly, averaging 28.7 points per game, but without a fully healthy Baylor, the Lakers fell short in the Western Division. Playoffs and finals. Boston faced Chamberlain's Warriors in the finals. Russell versus Chamberlain was becoming the league's marquee rivalry, and this series added another chapter. Wilt battled valiantly, averaging over 29 points and 27 rebounds in the series, but Boston's depth overwhelmed the Warriors. The Celtics won in 5 games, their 6th title of the dynasty. Russell's ability to make his teammates better, contrasted with Wilt's sometimes isolated dominance, defined the narrative. 1964-1965. Havlicek stole the ball. The 1964-65 campaign opened with one of the most significant trades in NBA history. In January 1965, the San Francisco Warriors dealt Wilt Chamberlain back to Philadelphia, where the Syracuse Nationals had relocated 2 years earlier to become the 76ers. Suddenly, the Eastern Division, already the most competitive in the league, was the stage for the game's 2 most iconic big men, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt's return and dominance. Back in Philadelphia, Chamberlain immediately altered the balance of power. In only 35 games with the Sixers, he averaged 30.1 points, 23 rebounds, and 3.4 assists, instantly making them contenders. His presence gave Philadelphia one of the most imposing front lines in league history, with Hal Greer, scoring guard, Chet Walker, versatile forward, and Lucius Jackson, rugged rebounder, complementing his size. Wilt's overall season numbers were staggering: 34.7 points per game and 22.9 rebounds, his 6th straight scoring title. His rebounding duels with Russell in their matchups, often seeing both men pulling down 30-plus boards, were unlike anything else in professional sports. Boston's relentless machine. Boston, though, still looked like the more cohesive unit. Russell, entering his prime as a cerebral anchor, averaged 14.1 points, 24.1 rebounds, and 5.3 assists. He controlled games with defense, rebounding, and outlet passing, setting Boston's fast break in motion. Sam Jones peaked this year, averaging a career-best 25.9 points per game, while John Havlicek's motor defined the team's energy. The Celtics finished with a league-best 62-18 record. The epic Eastern Finals. The postseason delivered the anticipated clash. The Celtics and 76ers battled through 7 brutal games in the Eastern Division Finals. Wilt was nearly superhuman, 30.1 points, 31.4 rebounds across the series, but Boston's balance mattered more. Game 7, played in the Boston Garden on April 15, 1965, entered NBA lore. With Boston leading 110-109 and only 5 seconds left, the Sixers had the ball. Hal Greer attempted a routine inbounds pass. Havlicek lunged across the passing lane, tipping it to Sam Jones. "Havlicek stole the ball," shouted announcer Johnny Most, cementing one of the most replayed soundbites in basketball history. Boston advanced to the finals and swiftly swept the Los Angeles Lakers, led by Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, for their 7th consecutive title. 1965-1966. Celtics at the summit. By 1965-66, the Celtics were chasing a level of dominance unmatched in American sports. This was the year they secured their 8th straight championship, a streak that to this day remains untouchable. Boston's core holding firm. Though aging, Boston's system held. Russell's defense and playmaking remained central. 12.9 points, 21.0 rebounds, 4.8 assists, while Havlicek's influence expanded, as he logged heavy minutes as the team's indefatigable sixth man, averaging 17.8 points and 6.7 rebounds. Sam Jones continued his reign as Boston's reliable scorer at 23.5 points per game, while Tommy Heinsohn played his final season, still stretching defenses with outside shooting. The Celtics finished 54-26, still tops in the East, though clearly showing signs of attrition after a decade of constant deep playoff runs. The league context. This season also reflected a league in flux. The NBA had only 9 teams, but parity was growing. Philadelphia looked increasingly dangerous with Chamberlain, Hal Greer, and Chet Walker. Meanwhile, in the West, the Lakers with West, 31.3 ppg, and Baylor, 16.6 rpg despite injuries, were desperate to break through Boston's stranglehold. Playoffs. Familiar patterns, narrow escapes. In the Eastern Division Finals, Boston once again faced Philadelphia. Wilt's averages were absurd, 28 points, 30 rebounds per game, but Alex Hannum's Sixers still lacked the depth and execution to topple Russell. Boston closed the series in 5 games, proving that one man, even Wilt, couldn't overcome a system. The finals against the Lakers went the full 7 games, a rare occurrence in Boston's run. West was heroic, pouring in 33 points per game in the series, including a 46-point explosion in Game 1. Baylor, limited by knee issues, still fought valiantly. Game 7 at the Boston Garden saw Russell impose his will defensively. He logged 25 rebounds, 10 assists, and stifling interior control, pushing Boston to a 95-93 victory and that 8th straight crown. 1966-1967. The year of the 76ers. Finally, the dam broke. After 8 years of Celtic dominance, Wilt Chamberlain and the Philadelphia 76ers conquered the league in what many historians still regard as one of the greatest single seasons in NBA history. Wilt's reinvention. Under coach Alex Hannum, Chamberlain fundamentally changed his approach. Rather than forcing himself as the league's leading scorer, Wilt became a facilitator. His averages tell the story: 24.1 points, 24.2 rebounds, and 7.8 assists per game, leading the league in the latter category, unheard of for a center. He also shot 68.3% from the field, a record that remains jaw-dropping. Wilt's unselfishness unlocked the Sixers roster. Hal Greer, 22.1 ppg, Chet Walker, 19.3 ppg, and Billy Cunningham, 18.5 ppg off the bench, flourished. Lucius Jackson provided defense and rebounding muscle. With balance and discipline, the Sixers stormed to a 68-13 record, the best in NBA history at that time. Boston slows down. Boston, by contrast, looked mortal. Heinsohn retired, and while Russell, 12.9 ppg, 21 rpg, remained a force. The team seemed to wobble under the weight of age and attrition. Still, they managed a 60-21 record, second best in the league. Eastern Division Finals. The breakthrough. This was the true changing of the guard. Philadelphia dismantled Boston in 5 games, ending the Celtics dynasty. Wilt averaged 21. 6 points, 32 rebounds, and 10 assists, proving he could dominate without monopolizing the ball. For the first time in nearly a decade, Boston was no longer the king of the NBA. The championship. In the finals, the Sixers faced the San Francisco Warriors, Wilt's former team. Philadelphia overpowered them in 6 games. Greer scored consistently, Cunningham added instant offense, and Wilt's all-around play suffocated San Francisco's hopes. When the Sixers closed the series, Chamberlain finally had his long-awaited championship. The press hailed them as the greatest team in NBA history, a title still debated today. For Wilt, it was more than a trophy. It was vindication that he could win playing unselfishly, and it silenced critics who claimed he only cared about numbers. 1967 to 1968. Wilt versus Russell, the rivalry's peak. The 1967-68 season began under the shadow of Philadelphia's historic 68-13 campaign the year before. The 76ers were the defending champions, anchored by Wilt Chamberlain's new team-first approach. But the hunger of the Boston Celtics, who had watched their streak of titles broken, set the stage for another dramatic clash. Wilt's statistical mastery. Chamberlain continued redefining what a center could be. Though his scoring dipped, he dominated every other area. 24.3 points, 23.8 rebounds, and 8.6 assists per game, again leading the NBA in assists. Wilt's passing and efficiency, 59.5% FG, made Philadelphia even harder to guard. Hal Greer, 24.1 ppg, remained the perimeter star, and Chet Walker's mid-range scoring complemented the frontcourt. The Sixers finished 62-20, best in the league, and seemed poised to repeat. Boston's aging machine still grinding. Boston's 1967-68 squad was older but resilient. Bill Russell, now in his penultimate season, balanced his duties as player coach, the first African-American head coach in major U.S. sports, with commanding defense and rebounding. 12.5 points, 18.6 rebounds, 4.6 assists. Sam Jones, 20.7 ppg, provided veteran scoring, while Havlicek, 20.0 ppg, 6.7 rpg, 5.4 apg, entered his prime as the team's heartbeat. The Celtics ended the year 54-28, second best in the East. Eastern Finals. A legendary comeback. The much-anticipated Eastern Division Finals pitted Boston against Philadelphia. Through 4 games, the Sixers dominated, racing to a 3-1 series lead. Chamberlain averaged 22 points, 25 rebounds, and nearly 9 assists, and the Sixers blew. Russell held Wilt to only 14 points, while Havlicek poured in 29. The Celtics completed one of the most famous comebacks in NBA history, erasing the 3-1 deficit to reclaim Eastern supremacy. Boston advanced to the finals and dispatched the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games, earning Russell his 10th championship. The victory reasserted Boston's dominance, but it also cast doubts on Wilt's ability to rise in the biggest moments. 1968-1969, Russell's last stand. The 1968-69 season carried an air of transition. Many of the decade's stars were aging, and new faces were beginning to emerge. Yet at the center of it all was one last clash between Russell's Celtics and the Lakers duo of West and Baylor, now joined by Wilt Chamberlain. The blockbuster trade Wilt to LA. In the summer of 1968, Philadelphia stunned the league by trading Wilt Chamberlain to the Los Angeles Lakers. For the first time, Chamberlain, Baylor, and West, 3 of the greatest talents in NBA history, shared the same roster. The super team expectations were enormous. Wilt's numbers adjusted to his new role: 20.5 points, 21.1 rebounds, 4.5 assists, while West averaged 25.9 points and Baylor contributed 24.8 points, 10.6 rebounds. The Lakers finished 55-27, first in the West, but chemistry issues and injuries plagued them. Boston's last ride. Boston stumbled through the regular season, finishing only 48-34, their worst record in years. Russell, clearly slowing at age 35, managed 9.9 points, 19.3 rebounds, for 0.9 assists. Havlicek, 21.6 ppg, was now the offensive anchor, and Sam Jones, in his final year, still chipped in 16.2 ppg. The Celtics looked vulnerable, but their championship DNA remained. The finals. Celtics versus Lakers, again. The 1969 finals created an iconic moment in basketball history. The Lakers, heavily favored with their superstar trio, expected to crush the weary Celtics. The series stretched to 7 games, with West playing perhaps the greatest finals of all time. 37.9 points, 7.4 assists, 4.7 rebounds across the series, including a 42-point triple-double in Game 7. But Russell's Celtics would not yield. Havlicek's all-around brilliance, Don Nelson's timely shooting, and Sam Jones's clutch baskets balanced West's onslaught. Game 7, played in Los Angeles, came down to the wire. Don Nelson's high-arcing jumper off the back rim and sealed a 108-106 victory for Boston. The Celtics had won their 11th championship in 13 years, giving Russell and Sam Jones a storybook farewell. In defeat, West was named the Finals MVP, the only time in history the award has gone to a player on the losing team. 1969-1970. A new era dawns. With Russell and Jones retired, the 1969-70 season marked the official end of Boston's dynasty. The torch passed to a new generation of stars, led by Willis Reed's New York Knicks, who embodied teamwork and defensive grit. The Knicks' rise. The Knicks had been building throughout the late 60s under coach Red Auerbach. By 1969-70, they emerged as the league's most cohesive unit. Willis Reed, both captain and emotional leader, averaged 21.7 points and 13.9 rebounds, anchoring their front line. Walt Clyde Frazier blossomed into a two-way superstar at guard, with 20.9 points, 6 rebounds, and 8.2 assists per game. Dick Barnett, Bill Bradley, and Dave DeBusschere rounded out a perfectly balanced roster. New York stormed to a 60-22 record, best in the NBA, built on suffocating defense and unselfish ball movement. Wilt's injuries and the Lakers' struggles. For the Lakers, the transition year proved turbulent. Chamberlain missed most of the season with a serious knee injury, playing in only 12 games. Without him, Baylor and West carried the scoring load, but Los Angeles finished a modest 46-36. The finals. Knicks versus Lakers. The 1970 finals delivered one of the most famous moments in sports history. The series stretched to 7 games. Reed, injured with a torn thigh muscle, shocked the Madison Square Garden crowd by limping onto the court for Game 7. He scored the Knicks' first 2 baskets before ceding the floor to Clyde Frazier, who authored one of the greatest finals performances ever. 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds. The Knicks defeated the Lakers 113-99, claiming their first NBA championship. Reed was named both League MVP and Finals MVP, cementing his place in basketball lore. A decade of transition, rivalry, and evolution. The 1960s were the defining decade in professional basketball, shaping the NBA into a league of fierce rivalries, iconic stars, and structural changes that carried the sport into the modern era. Unlike the league's infancy in the 1950s, which revolved around establishing stability and introducing the first great dynasties, the 1960s delivered a decade-long narrative that blended dominance, heartbreak, innovation, and the birth of legends. By its end, the league looked dramatically different, both on the floor and in its cultural reach. The Russell dynasty and its shadow. Above all else, the decade belonged to Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics, whose unprecedented run of 11 championships in 13 seasons, 1957-1969, stamped a permanent mark on the NBA. Russell's unique ability to dominate games without being the leading scorer redefined how greatness was measured. His blend of rebounding, shot blocking, and leadership proved that defensive mastery could anchor a dynasty as firmly as offensive brilliance. The Celtics weren't just about Russell. Sam Jones's clutch shot-making, John Havlicek's relentless motor, K.C. Jones's defense, and Red Auerbach's system created a machine built for both consistency and pressure moments. Their dominance became the measuring stick for every other franchise, forcing rivals to construct rosters not merely to win titles but specifically to defeat Boston. Yet, Boston's dominance also created tension. The league risked predictability, as fans and opponents alike began wondering if anyone could truly break the Celtic hold. The eventual 1967 Philadelphia 76ers title run and the 1970 New York Knicks breakthrough were celebrated as refreshing disruptions to Boston's iron grip, proof that the league was not entirely one-sided. Wilt Chamberlain, the colossus of the era. If Russell embodied winning, Wilt Chamberlain embodied statistical domination. His 1960s resume is otherworldly. 50.4 points per game in 1961-62, still unmatched. 100-point game, March 2, 1962, an immortal record, 7 straight scoring titles. Seasons averaging over 25 rebounds per game. Later in the decade, reinventing himself as a passer, leading the league with 8.6 assists per game, 1967-68. But for all his numbers, Wilt's decade is equally defined by the narrative that he couldn't consistently overcome Russell. The rivalry between the two men transcended basketball. It was dominance versus resilience, gaudy numbers versus winning habits, raw power versus disciplined control. Every playoff meeting between the two was billed as a heavyweight bout, yet Russell's Celtics emerged victorious in 6 of their 7 postseason clashes. Wilt did have triumphs. His 1967 Sixers were hailed as one of the greatest teams in history, dismantling Boston and winning 68 games. But more often than not, the decade story ended with him as the foil to Russell's triumphs. The rise of the superstar guard. While centers dominated the headlines, the 1960s also gave rise to 2 of the greatest perimeter players in NBA history, Jerry West and Oscar Robertson. West, Mr. Clutch, spent the decade crafting his reputation as the game's purest shooter and fiercest competitor. His scoring brilliance, career 27.0 ppg, and legendary playoff performances made him the face of the Lakers, though repeated heartbreak at the hands of Boston defined his 1960s legacy. Robertson, meanwhile, became the blueprint for the modern guard. His 1961-62 triple-double season, 30.8 points, 12.5 rebounds, 11.4 assists, was thought impossible for decades. A complete player with size, vision, and scoring touch, Robertson symbolized how the backcourt position was evolving into a do-everything role. Together, West and Robertson showed that while Russell and Wilt dominated inside, the future of the league would depend on versatile guards who could control tempo, distribute, and score at will. The Lakers' endless pursuit. No franchise better captured the frustration of the decade than the Los Angeles Lakers. Powered by Baylor's artistry, West's precision, and later Chamberlain's dominance, the Lakers reached the finals 7 times in the 1960s and lost every single one, 6 of them to Boston. Baylor's high-flying scoring feats, including his 61-point performance in the 1962 finals, made him a revolutionary figure, a precursor to modern wings who blended athleticism and flair. But his knees betrayed him late in the decade, and the Lakers' championship window seemed cursed until the 1970s. Their persistent failures to topple Boston became part of NBA mythology, an agonizing subplot to Russell's dynasty. The Knicks and the end of an era. The 1969-70 season signaled the passing of the torch. With Russell and Sam Jones retired, Boston's empire crumbled, and a new team stepped into the spotlight, the New York Knicks. Their 1970 title run, built on unselfish ball movement, defensive intensity, and balance across positions, represented the culmination of lessons learned during the decade. Willis Reed's iconic Game 7 entrance against the Lakers became the perfect symbol for this transition. Heart, leadership, and collective effort now carried the league forward. The broader evolution of the league. The 1960s were not just about players and games. The league itself transformed. Expansion. The NBA grew from 8 to 14 teams, laying the foundation for nationwide reach. Integration. The influx of black stars reshaped the game's style and cultural identity. Television. By the late 1960s, nationally broadcast games were becoming more common, expanding the NBA's visibility. Style of play. The pace of the early 1960s, teams averaging over 125 points per game, gave way to a more defensive, structured approach by decade's end, reflecting how stars like Russell and Reed reshaped priorities. Legacy of the 1960s. In closing, the 1960s were the decade where the NBA became a league of rivalries and superstars. Russell's Celtics defined what it meant to be a dynasty. Wilt redefined what an individual could achieve. West, Baylor, and Robertson brought artistry and versatility. And by decade's end, the Knicks symbolized the dawn of a new, more balanced league. It was a decade of contrasts. Numbers versus championships, East versus West, dynasties versus challengers. Every storyline revolved around those tensions, making the NBA of the 1960s not just a professional sport but a stage where greatness and frustration collided. The 1950s gave the NBA structure. The 1960s gave it soul, legends, and enduring narratives.